Sir, how are you?
Thank you for getting back to me on that Regency Park. I appreciate it. Oh, you bet.
Yeah, call the city. I gotta remember to do that.
Oh, yes, yeah.
Okay.
That's right. I forgot about that one. Yeah.
Yeah, it's
Right next to one we take.
Great.
But it's, their annexations are, it's kind of a sawtooth out there.
Well, I kind
Tuesday, March 28, 2023. I'd like to welcome everyone to the Transportation Ad Hoc Committee meeting. At this time, the meeting will come to order. Madam Clerk, will you please take the roll?
Brenham, Pugh, Weaver, Walker,
Here.
Mackey.
Here.
We have a quorum.
And also let the record reflect that I spoke with both Councilman Pugh and Councilman Branham, and both of them are traveling out of town on business, so they would not be present this afternoon. Next item on the agenda is item 2, approval of the minutes from the February 7th, 2023 meeting. Entertain a motion.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved to properly second. Any discussion? There be it none. Madam Clerk, take the roll, please. For the vote, rather.
Weaver,
Saying yes? Yes.
Walker,
Yes.
Mackey.
Yes.
Motion approved.
Next item on the agenda is item 3, adoption of the agenda. Any changes, additions, or deletions?
No, Mr. Chairman.
All right, there being none, I entertain a motion.
So moved.
Second.
Properly second, any discussion? There being none, Madam Clerk, take the vote.
Yes.
Weaver, Walker,
Yes.
Mackey.
Yes.
Motion approved.
Next item on the
Mr.
agenda.
Chair.
I'm sorry.
I'm
you
sorry.
recognize Ms. Mackey?
Yes, just one quick question. I just, for clarification, want to make sure. In looking at the minutes in February, we have a certain number of council members listed that do not match the list that are on this committee. And I just want to confirm that what is at the top of this page, on page 3, is the official list of committee members, because the minutes previously stated that we had a different set of committee members vote. And so I think the list on this page might be wrong.
And actually, very, very perceptive of you, Madam Vice Chair, because
One of the
now
others
that you've
wrong.
highlighted it,
Yes.
I've just picked up on it as well. And in fact, I believe Mr. Livingston was just telling us that he believes he is on this committee, and I was telling him that he is not on the committee.
And I thought he was.
No, absolutely. Thank you for highlighting that, Madam Vice Chair. So, Madam Clerk, if you would please, would you give us some clarity?
Chairman Walker, I apologize and thank you for bringing it up. Vice Chair Mackey, you are right. The members on the committee are Mr. Livingston, Ms. McBride, Pugh, Walker, and English. So I apologize for that.
Oh, I don't believe Ms. McBride is on the committee. I believe it is myself, Ms. Mackey, Mr. Livingston, Mr. Weaver, and Mr. Branham. Yeah, that's all right.
And I will note that I will make that correction.
Not calling you to the carpet, Madam Clerk. It's just clarity purposes. That's all.
So I do want to note that Mr. that Mr. Livingston is here. So we'll note that on the minutes that he's present, and also we'll have to record his vote for the adoption of the minutes and the agenda.
Right, so noted. All right, next item on the agenda is item
Mr. Chair.
4A. You recognize Mr. Wright?
I'm sorry. If Mr. Livingston is on the committee, I think that before we go forward, it needs to be on the record what his vote is, as far as one, the roll call that he's present.
Yes.
And,
Well,
right.
Would it
And two
just
to
be
vote.
easier if we just started from the beginning? Let's just, let's go back to item 2A. So pretty much we're going to, a motion to reconsider item 2A, approval of the minutes from the February 7th, 2023 meeting. At this time, I entertain a motion.
Second.
Properly second. Any discussion? All right, there being none, Madam Clerk, take the vote.
Weaver.
Yes.
I'm sorry, I just should have started with Livingston.
Oh, that's correct.
Well, reconsidering the vote. Yeah, because you haven't voted on it yet. So we're going to reconsider the vote for approval of the minutes from the
Yes.
Okay, so yes.
Weaver.
Yes, right?
Yes.
Mackey.
Yes.
Walker.
Yes.
Motion approved.
Okay. Now, before we move on, Mr. Wright, we've reconsidered that item. Do we now need to vote on it again, or does the affirmative reconsideration vote counts as a yes on that item?
No, you need to vote.
So we need to vote again.
Yes.
All right. So at this time, I entertain a motion for approval of the minutes for the February 7th, 2023 meeting.
So moved.
It's been moved to properly second. Any discussion? There being none, Madam Clerk, take the vote.
Livingston. Weaver.
Yes.
Walker.
Yes.
Mackey.
Yes.
Motion approved.
All right, next item on the agenda is item 3, adoption of the agenda. Again, this item needs to be reconsidered. So I entertain a motion to reconsider adoption of the agenda.
Move to reconsider.
Second.
Properly second. Any discussion? There being none, Madam Clerk, take the vote.
Livingston.
Yes.
Weaver.
Yes.
Mackey.
Yes.
Walker.
Yes.
Motion approved.
Okay, at this time, entertain a motion for adoption of the agenda.
Second.
Move to properly second. Any discussion? There being none, Madam Clerk, take the vote.
Livingston. Weaver.
Yes.
Walker.
Yes.
Mackey.
Yes.
Motion approved.
All right, now we've made it to item 4A, items for action. 4A, mitigation bank credit, DR Horton, Inc., West Point Phase 2 development. Director Maloney, if you're ready, you have the floor. Love to hear from you.
Sir. Thank you, Chairman Walker. This is to bring in wetland credit sales from our wetland, and it's for DR Horton, Inc. in York County, South Carolina. It's Westport Phase 2 development, and it's 1.61 acres at the rate of $20,000 per credit. This will yield $37,523.73 back to the transportation penny. We recommend approval of the sale.
Has any questions for Director Maloney on this item? If not, I entertain a motion.
Approve, Mr. Chair.
Second.
Been moved to properly second. Any discussion? There being none, Madam Clerk, take the vote.
Livingston. Weaver.
Yes.
Walker.
Yes.
Mackey.
Yes.
Motion approved.
Next item on the agenda is item 4B, mitigation bank credit with respect to Fire Tower Road. Director Maloney, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chairman Walker. This sells wetland credit sales to Fire Tower Road site for Fire Tower Logistics LLC in York County, South Carolina. This is for road construction to acquire credits for 17.47 wetland credits at a rate of $20,000 per credit. This will yield $334,358.38 back to the transportation penny program. We recommend the sale.
Questions for Director Maloney on this item? Get none, I entertain a motion.
Move to approve.
Second.
Properly second, any discussion? There being none, Madam Clerk, take the vote.
Livingston.
Yes.
Weaver.
Yes.
Walker.
Yes.
Mackey.
Yes.
Motion approved.
Next item on the agenda is item 4C, mitigation bank credit, River Falls at Tega K. Director Maloney, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chairman Walker. This is River Falls at Tega K in York County, South Carolina. It's 2.162 credits, and it's for $12,500 per credit. That will yield $26,304.33 back to the penny. We recommend the sale.
Questions on this item from the body? You recognize Ms. Mackey? And Ms. Mackey, and then Councilman Weaver.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Director Maloney, can you just explain the price difference per credit on this one?
Is this the older one? This sale had occurred and was negotiated earlier. This is about a 2-month-old process to get to the sale. And at that time, we were having most of the sales at that $12,500 mark. These newer ones that were in front of this that just came in at the higher unit price. So it's what the market will bear and what the competitors are putting out from other wetland banks.
And so at this time, I mean, are we technically, I don't say losing revenue by selling it at a lesser value when we just did some at 20,000?
We're not losing at that rate. We're still being made whole, but the other amount will help us even with what the pennies using itself kind of pay some of those off.
Recognize Councilman Weaver.
That was my question, Mr. Chairman.
All right. Well, at this time, if there are no further questions, I entertain a motion. Second. Okay.
Second.
Properly second. And any discussion? Director Maloney, I have a question, and I guess you could say it applies to items A, B, and C. But as far as the revenue that comes in from the sale of these mitigation bank credits, I know the funds go back into the program, but how do you decide, I guess, what the funds get used on with respect to certain projects? Is there a process in place that determines, which projects these funds will be used for, or can you kind of just maybe elaborate on that a little bit?
Yes, sir. They just go to the fund balance. And so whatever we have designated currently. And so when I gave that presentation, and certainly willing to do more in depth of that, what we had at the council strategic planning retreat, but those go to fund balance. And then we already have like the budget set for all the projects. And we've forecasted, the inflation as we did at 20% looking forward. And we found that we have funds remaining. So that fund is just in fund balance and not designated to a project at this point. Tonight, we do have another item where we do ask for some of that balance to be used specifically. And so these dollars would just be helping fund that. When we say we have $52.5 million, that is from the reserve that we have set up. Now that reserve may not fully be there until the full revenue's there as well. And so that's all part of fund balance.
So Director Maloney, when the mitigation bank credit, I guess the revenue from the sale of these bank credits, when they go back towards the fund balance, does it then have to, I guess you have to come back before this committee or go before full council to determine how you want to use these funds that go into the fund balance, or they go back into fund balance and you just use them to maybe, cover any sort of, I don't say cost overruns, but if the price of construction goes up on a particular project, is more expensive than what we thought previously, you just pull the dollars from the fund balance to, I guess, cover the difference in the original estimate versus today's cost?
I should have brought this up at the beginning. So the first thing that we're covering is the investment. So building the bank. And so we haven't done that yet. And that's what it's, if you're looking at something that it's offsetting that cost of around $16 million to build the entire bank, the land that it's on, et cetera. So that's something we keep in our monthly reports for the committee and for the TPAC report that keeps our balance shown. And as we sell credits, we're reducing that what's remaining and increasing a revenue that's in our grants and other revenue source and showing that and how it's offsetting that original investment. And that hasn't been completed to date.
Okay. Questions? Item. Madam Clerk, take the vote.
Livingston,
Yes.
Weaver,
Yes.
Walker,
Yes.
Mackey.
Yes.
Motion approved.
Next item on the agenda is item 4D, use of project reserve for paved road resurfacing in fiscal year 23-24. Director Maloney, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chairman Walker. This is a request for $5 million from the project reserve that was created by council last summer. We have $52.5 million designated towards that, and the success of the resurfacing program has brought us to near the end of completion on all the projects and funding we have. So at this point, we will be hitting the $40 million mark, and there was also $1.4 million of grants, and we'll have utilized that as well. But of the referendum amount of $40 million, we request to up that to $5 million, and then we will show the deduct coming from the reserve, from taking it from 52.5 to 48.5 million. So that's our request. Just for a little bit on where we're at, projects S and T, as we call them, bid packages, are out and being constructed right now. We'll have enough funding to complete package U, which we're putting together the project list. But after that, we would be going to the next set, 2 or 3 more bid packages for FY 23-24 to keep the program going at that $5 million amount.
Livingston, you recognized?
Mr. Miller, you referencing the 52.5 million regarding Broad River. So right now, is that the only source of reserve funds you're talking about? But those are not the only reserve funds in the penny program, correct?
Correct. They're the only ones that we have designated in the roadways area that wouldn't be crossing from another a referendum item like greenways or the overall program. There's a 31.1 million in there we called it program reserve, so that it was kind of kept separately, which was once the administrative dollar amounts that we couldn't.
I thought they were.
So those are kept out of that. And I think if we were to get to those at some point, we would, if it's outside of greenways or outside of the overall program, even to use that, I think we would be doing 3 readings in a public hearing.
So your request right now is only from the reserve fund regarding Broad River?
Yes, sir. That was unattached, undesignated from that project to become project reserve fund.
Ms. Mackey?
Thank you. I guess a slight follow-up to Mr. Livingston's question. We had previously discussed with these reserve funds to somehow come up with some name protocol for them, because I think when we talk about reserves, I think sometimes we as council members get confused on which pot of money we're referring to. Because I remember we had this initial pot per se, and then there's a separate pot where we said, okay, we're still going to hold this, and then council's going to figure out the priorities for that. And I think sometimes when we talk about it and not having separated and given a clear name, we get confused on which truly is the reserves that we're referring to that we've already set priorities for and the ones that we haven't. So if we could figure out a way to separate the two in the naming, that might help some.
Yes, ma'am. On page 21 of the packet, I've tried to read through our blue label there, but I believe it's page 21. It's the letter to Dr. Thompson from myself. This went on and became an attachment to council last summer. And for the redesignation of I-20 Broad River Road Exchange, we designated that as project reserve of 52.5 million. And then in the paragraph below that, we would designate that administrative cost to program reserve. Now, maybe project reserve and program reserve, they're not that different sounding. So I understand
Yeah.
It's not yellow, it's not red and green, but we could probably come up with a better designation for you than that.
Thank you.
Additional questions on this item? You recognize Councilman Weaver.
Thank you, Director Maloney. So all of this money, this what we were saying here, 5 million or 52 million?
52.5 million, sir.
5 million. All of this is going to this Broad River Road project? No other roads except for that interchange.
That was in the original referendum.
Okay.
Yes, but that has been put into a reserve. It's not, none of it is going to that project.
Okay. And this may be a time for another place and time for this question, but so what is left in our budget for resurfacing in general? Is that, can I get that answer from y'all? Like for other projects in the district? I'm sure it's on some website somewhere.
Yes, sir. We update our budgets every month.
Okay.
But we are down in the neighborhood of a few $1 million remaining.
Really?
So
Okay.
we have enough for one more package, as we said, we call it bid package U.
Okay.
And at that point, we'll be at 41.1 million.
Okay.
And to clarify, I guess, making sure, and you may have understood, but just to clarify, so there's the penny budget that he's talking about, but then there's a separate budget as it relates to transportation projects. So we're talking about the money right now tied to the penny program.
Penny.
Yes.
Thank you,
You're welcome.
Madam Chair, for clarifying that.
And Councilman Weaver, that again, just for your edification, and of course, Director Maloney can explain this a lot better than I can, but that 52.5 million he's referring to, that is from the Broad River Road I-20 interchange, which originally was a penny project, but the state has taken it over.
Okay.
So as a result of them taking it over, I think they got some federal funds. And so they ultimately said they would just take over that project. Those were dollars that came back into the penny program. So that's the reserve. Well, those funds went into reserve. And that is what Director Maloney is alluding to when he's saying, sort of reallocating $5 million from that reserve fund toward this item for road surface.
Okay.
That makes sense.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
That's okay. Sorry. Anything else additional on this item?
Let me,
You recognize Mr. Livingston.
I can get some questions. You asked us, right now on item.
Item D.
I'm good.
Motion to approve?
Second.
Properly second. Any discussion? There being none, Madam Clerk, take the vote.
Livingston,
Yes.
Weaver,
Yes.
Walker,
Yes.
Mackey.
Yes.
Motion approved.
And before we move on to the next item, Mr. Livingston, you said you thought you had a question?
I'm good.
You sure? Okay. Next item on the agenda is item 5, it's a presentation. Item 5A, Mead and Hunt Dirt Road Paving Program Process. So, Director Maloney.
Thank you, sir. We're going to start off with a few slides. We have Raymond Hamilton here from Mead and Hunt, and he'll present the rest of his crew here, but they're going to present what they've done to accomplish results in another county. We had looked across all the different counties at programs, and we had looked at some of the things, the issues we talked about, which were, some incomplete right-of-way projects and projects we've invested in that we'd like to keep moving. And that currently our ordinance is our limiting factor and would have to be adjusted for anything we're talking about here. So this is just a presentation to kind of enlighten what another county did that was very proactive in achieving results for the dirt road paving. So we kind of went over the root cause that we have as our consent denial process currently. And then we let you know at the strategic planning forum that item 3, we would present to council modifications to our dirt road paving process. So we're here to do that now. And I'm going to turn it over to Raymond to introduce his colleagues, and they can give us the presentation.
Thank you, Director Maloney, and for the opportunity to present to you and to this committee. Mead and Hunt is fortunate enough to be selected as one of the original OETs for the transportation penny that passed in 2015. We've been heavily involved in dirt roads for the county since about 2017. We've also done dirt road paving for many other counties across the state. And here today to present maybe some other options that are other techniques we've used for right-of-way acquisition, mainly here in Horry County. I have Barry Still here, who was the program manager of Ride 2, which was Horry County's second penny that passed. And then also I'm working with Tony Flaw on the Ride 3, which is the third penny they passed with the dirt road paving. So I'm gonna let Barry kind of take it from there.
It's always the gray-headed guy that's a historian to tell you how things go. So he's just being nice. But kind of what we want to talk to you about is give you a little bit of an overview of, like Raymond said, we have worked at a lot of counties. We've been very fortunate to partner with a lot of counties about some of the dirt roads. And we've kind of seen some of the differences. And what we want to show here is something we've been very proud of with Horry County, our partnership with them. Something they did a little bit different that's helped us really get the work done. We'll give you a little history lesson here, much like y'all have. They have a sales tax program, basically the RIDE 2 and RIDE 3. RIDE stands for Road Improvement Development Effort. They did the first one in 2006 and the second one in 2016. 200 miles of dirt road paving was in those two referendums. 272 projects, over 2,700 easements that we have to get. And then basically, obviously, they put their money where their mouth is. They had $160 million in it. They have a huge inventory of dirt roads they wanted to get paved. Now, one of the things that kind of unique about their program is in their referendum, they named all 272 roads. So Dirt Road A, Dirt Road B, Dirt Road C, they named all of them. They did that so they could use their condemnation power to go in and basically procure those projects. Now, I know y'all's sales tax basically has that as a line item, doesn't name each one of them. That doesn't preclude you from using what we're getting ready to talk about as far as that condemnation responsibility. Other thing that we thought was neat is that basically they also had a provision in there where if, and we actually had one road that did this where maybe a community of people on that road decide they didn't want to see it paved. They could come and basically through a written document basically say that we don't want it paved, and yes, we'll take the maintenance of it and we'll take it out of your system. So it's actually a win for everybody. So they had a neat little option right there. And also their program is managed. I have to say that we were fortunate enough to do that, but we basically do the soup to nuts, if you will, to get it all the way through through design and construction. We'll go over the status of a little bit. The RIDE 2, the one that started in 2007, it was on the 2006 referendum. It's complete. The data on that is 100 miles of dirt roads that were paved, 191 projects. $100 million was budgeted, and we secured over 1,000, almost 1,100 easements. And we actually saved about $43 million from their 57. So it was $57 million. RIDE 3 is basically started in 2007, something we've got ongoing right now. 4 groups, obviously 25 roads for that 100 total miles, just like we talked about in the first one. 77 total projects. What you had there is we started getting the bigger projects. We got into 2 miles, 2+ mile projects. So that's why you see less. The budget came down because obviously we were seeing better pricing with what all we were doing, our partnership with Horry County. And then we're anticipating over 1,500 easements we have to get through that. We haven't basically gone through all 4 segments yet, so we don't know exactly. We're projecting that. But right now, as far as Group 3, we're into Group 1, 18 projects completed, no condemnations whatsoever. We're going to talk a little bit about that. And in Group 2, we got 19 projects with 2 condemnations we had to do. Basically, they tie into 536 easements that have been acquired to date with 2 condemnations. And I'm going to hit on those numbers here in a second just to make, because I know there's a comfort level that has to be acquired with this. How were they successful? You keep hearing me say condemnation. And basically, that's really how they were successful. What we want to talk about in the rest of this proposal is really debunking some of the myths of condemnation, talking about the cost of condemnation. I know there's a lot of things out there. We're going to show you real-time dollars of how it worked. So they basically just throw facts at you as far as the dollars. And then really some lessons learned that we need to learn on how to implement, the acquisition, use the condemnation process to really move these projects forward. Because it's one thing I've talked about is that schedule is always important. And if you've got people that basically, you've got that one person out of 10 on that road that decides they don't want to do anything and you have to drop it, there's a lot of expenses you put towards that. There's a lot of time and logistics that really get into to basically driving your cost up. And that's what condemnation will help you save. One of the myths is basically, and like we said, we worked with a lot of different counties, and we hear a lot of the fact that they say, well, if those people aren't going to give me their property or donate the property, I'm not going to pay for them. I get it. I totally get it. There's a value there, but that's really an antiquated way to look at it. Because one is that doesn't get the needle moving. Basically, you're having much like, we're talking about projects that were in 2017, 2018, still sitting out there that haven't been worked on. because they weren't able to condemn that property and get that because one person decided they didn't want that. Another thing too is you've got to consider is that there are some properties out there that may be on a dirt road that really you do have to spend some money on. We've had not a lot, but we had several that we encountered where their frontage was on on a paved road. And so that paving that dirt road for the other entrance really did not provide a benefit for them. So you had to pay them. So there is some payment that may happen. It doesn't happen a lot, but it does happen. And then it basically it gives you the benefit to go ahead and move, I'll keep hitting this, moving the needle forward on getting those projects done. Condemnation costs too much. What I'll tell you is I think it saves you money. I'm going to go over and we're going to give you some real costs that are going to show you where it saves you money. There is that myth that basically, well, I'm not spending money on this. And if I spend money on this, I'm going to have to basically pay every property owner out there. We're going to show you that's simply not the case. It's actually, we think, lowering your cost. Because one is, we talked about the projects that are still out there in 2017, 2018, and some of them were ours that could have been done. If they were built then you don't have this escalation cost we're going through right now in construction of 14% a year. It's just crazy. Just think about the cost savings you could have if we were able to get those done back in 17 and 18. Also, some of the things too is like we talked a little bit about, some design work, some stuff, some level of effort has happened. So if you go through and you basically don't have that condemnation power, if you have to stop the project, that design fee or whatever, it goes on the shelf and you've already spent it. So it's wasted money. So it allows you to help you save you on that aspect. And then the other myth, which we're going to talk about here in a second, with some real facts, is that everyone takes you to the court. Oh, they're spending money out there. This is a payday. We're basically going to do that. Well, we're going to show you the important part. You see that first bullet item is we get over that first segment, which we completed. These are hardcore numbers. Over almost 1,100 easements secured. 8 of them went to trial. That's less than 1% of all the ones that are required. 1%. Ride 2, right now, we have 536 easements in the group 1 and 2 we've done. We got 2 condemnations so far. So not everybody's running thinking they're going to go to the bank. And we're going to tell you why that's not the case. Let's go over the hardcore factual numbers that we have here. And if I can see this well enough, this is just basically group 1 that shows you what our cash layout was for the right-of-way expenditures and overall dollars for group 1, 2, 3, and 4. There's 4 25-mile segments. You'll see 195 projects that we did during that. There was 4 more that were added because they were going so well, the county gave us some out of their road plans. So that's why you might see a difference. But what I want you to focus on, if you look over roughly where it says the fourth one over to my right is percent condemnation for acquired easements. And what's that saying is basically, if you look on the very bottom of the total, it's less than 1% of the total cost was tied into condemnation. Let's think about that again, is that if we would have built those projects 2017, 18, we wouldn't have this 17 or 14% increase in costs. Or, even your average construction in a good year before we went through all this is 3%. This is less than 1%. So it really is a cost savings to get those projects moved and get them to construction. The other thing I'll show you on that same column is, and then we'll get into that in a second with our lessons learned. We kind of learned how to apply that condemnation in a way that was, obviously we were seeking to get that, acquire that property first and work with the property owners. So we were able to bring those percentages down. We started out about 3%, and then towards the end, you see group 4, we didn't have any. So there's a lot too, when people know that you're going to condemn, they'll work with you a little bit better than that. So the next one is just group 3, where we're at so far. The thing I'll note there is you look at appraisal cost. In group 2, you see a number for $7,000. Part of the cost, I want to be very upfront, part of the cost of going to condemnation is the act of actually filing the document, doing the appraisal and all that stuff. You're looking anywhere from $3,500 to $4,000 per track. So if you see that number, that's where that $7,000 comes from. That's where the two condemnations came from. So that goes into your actual, cost that you have to expend But the other thing, once you look over there, the total appraised value, those two appraisals added up to $1,000. That's what basically the appraiser came back it was worth. Typically what you're seeing is these in your dirt road to pave, they're really, you're going to get an appraisal that says the benefits exceed cost. So what it's saying is there's no value there. There's not a lot of lawyers that are going to go after help somebody go to court when there's no value for them. 30% of zero is not really a great percentage for them. So a lot of these things don't go to court. Like I said, basically very few ever went to court at all. And we'll show you that here in a second. We'll talk about a little bit of the lessons learned and just kind of really quickly go through the process with you of how we kind of got those numbers down. Again, you're looking at less than 1% of these projects went to condemnation. Big thing we did there is we established a point of contact early. So a person that basically not only worked with the county, the client, but also worked with that property owner, got to know that person, had that trusted relationship, went out there to listen on what their issues were when basically we were starting the project. A big thing that we do is we videotape all our roads before we touch them. That's another thing we found when we get to the court cases. We actually had some settlements where we had some landowners say, hey, this drainage wasn't like this. You didn't do this. You didn't do that. And we're like, here's the video. Yes, we did. It's amazing how quickly we were able to settle after that. So, but we definitely do that to make sure those existing conditions are done. What we also do, and you're going to hear a lot about the way we communicate throughout the process, is that we send out, much like your consent denial letter, we'll send it, and maybe a little bit more on this, is we send out each property owner a letter of what's getting ready to happen, the process, what will go through, who you'll see out there. You'll see surveyors, you'll see our project manager come talk to you, you'll see our right-of-way people come out there. So what you'll see is they'll get comfortable with the process. Again, we're trying to create that relationship with them. And one of the things we've done that actually been real good with that is we go out there and we put out just utility flags, and we'll put it out there with a project manager, his name and his number, or her name and her number. And basically they go out and they'll stake the right of way on that road. So they'll basically, when you go meet the property owner, they'll actually see where their impacts are. And they can talk about, well, that's a tree that I don't want to see go, or, my grandmother gave that to me, or whatever. So those type of things. So we're able to have those conversations real time on the ground. Another thing is basically when we go out, we bring our right-of-way agent with us, to evaluate what the impacts are and making sure that we've got that cohesiveness between what we're designing and how it's hitting the property owners. And it's really important that we have somebody that really knows what the process is, how to talk to people, and basically how to look for impacts. I'm sure, yeah.
Yeah, about the meeting on site with bringing the right-of-way agent, we also bring county staff, and when we have an initial meeting out there, we have what we call a SWOT report we fill out, where we go over all existing conditions out there, what utilities are there, work with the county to see if there's any complaints about drainage or any issues out there that we need to know about. And it's also good to have the right-of-way agent out there, like Barry said, because sometimes property owners are curious, come talk, and want to know what's going on. So it's important for a right-of-way agent to start forming that relationship right there early on in the process. We don't work with right-of-way agents that say, well, I tried to call this property owner twice, they didn't answer, so let's condemn. We get there early. We try to meet them early. We listen to what they want. It's very important to hear what they want, what's important to them, that we incorporate that into our project, as well as that's incorporated into the easements to get them to sign. That's very important because it keeps the project moving.
Bottom line is we don't deal with people who don't listen and communicate, because we're obviously working for that property owner. What we're also talking about, some of the preliminary stuff we did, we'll approach the property owner early on. We have those, we've gone boots on the ground. We put those flags out there so they know where the impacts are. We've got that relationship that started with our project manager, and also we brought in the right-of-way agent to talk about it. But the key part of that is, it's kind of the thing you're always selling. We're always bringing an easement with us. So if somebody's ready to sign, then we've got an easement ready to sign. So you always got to be ready. So anytime we meet with those property owners, whatever it may be, we're always having that easement ready to go so we can get them to sign. We found that to be very effective. One of the other things we're going to talk about is that we really gave ourselves ability to compromise and working with our clients. They allowed us a certain buffer or whatever, what we could do. We go out there and listen to the property owner, and if they want to move some shrubs, they want to widen some driveways, they want to do certain things, we go and do that, and we do it right then. And we basically said, yeah, we'll do that. And then we bring that easement with them to try to get signed. So we're always trying to get that signature. And we've got an example of that if you want to go over it with me.
I just want to give you one example. We had a lady, she didn't have a phone. She was hard to get in touch with. So we communicated with her through a family. And we would just ride by and we would try to catch her home, even though just haphazardly. And she was indecisive. She would always hint through her family, I'm ready to sign, I'm ready to do this. We would show up with the easement and she wouldn't do it. And we went through this several months. Finally, she was the last one on the road. And so we said, we're gonna do this one more time. We feel like we can get her to sign. We talked to her. She says, well, this tree right here is impacting my house. It's right here on the easement. Can you take that out as part of the project? We had the flexibility to do that. So sure, we'll be happy to do that. Well, these azaleas right, they mean a lot to me and I don't want to see them go. Can you relocate them? We have that ability. We'll do that for you too. And I want you to shift this driveway. It's not really working right for me. We had the flexibility to do all of that. And she was so ecstatic. She signed on the spot. So that's the things that we enjoy doing for people like that.
I want to mention a little more what Tony mentioned about the flexibility. We have a very trusted relationship with Horry County, and we act as an extension of the staff so that we have certain, of course, to keep it in parameters, but we have certain flexibility to allow. It's not really a big cost to the project if you take down an extra tree or move a driveway over it. It's not a big cost, but it lets the resident or the property owner know that you're working with them. You're understanding their concerns and what's important to them. And like you said, you can fill it out, add that to the easement right there and get them to sign, keep the project moving.
Again, the theme is listen and basically act and communicate. And that's what we're basically doing through this whole process. And that's one thing we do throughout the whole process. Tony's example, he probably met with her, I don't know, goodness gracious, how many times to get it to where it needs to get there. So we do whatever it takes to get that signature. Because condemnation is the last resort. That's not what we want to do. And condemnation itself, I've done a lot of it in my prior life with DOT and here. It's kind of ugly. It's, everybody thinks it's somebody out there throwing some person out their window of their house or whatever, anything out of it or whatever. So we want to stay away from it, but it is a very good tool in moving the project forward. But we always do everything we can, as we outlined here, to talk, to listen, to try to get it done before that. But in the bottom line, when we get to, and we've met with these people over and over, and they just simply don't want to do it. There is that, and we've seen it in other counties, that people know that if I got 10 people out here and I'm a holdout, I'm number 10 and I don't want to do it, it could jeopardize the project. So they won't act. They won't call you back. They won't do this type things. But what we'll do is, after we try to get a hold of them, do all this stuff, we'll send a letter to them and saying, all right, by X date, we're going to send you a condemnation letter. That's the power of it. So it really requires them to act. So we get into where we're going to move forward on this project. Just want you to know, with or without you, we want to be with you and we want to help you, but we're going to move forward with this. We're not going to lose schedules. And that's really been, something that really is get people to act. So I think you were going to talk about that.
Yeah. And the other thing too, is that's the first time we really give them a timeline of when we need to act. Initially, we're approaching them. We've got a lot of time to work with them. We'll meet with them as many times. But when you get to that final parcel and you really need to move that project, that's when we'll send that letter. The other thing about that letter, too, is it tells them what the next steps are. Even though condemnation's filed, we still want to work with that property owner to try to settle before it goes to court, if at all possible. So at least they know what the next steps are.
But the key is, and I'll close, is that condemnation is not an ugly word. It's something that needs to be in your toolbox. Like I said, we've done county dirt roads through other, with that mentality of, well, if they don't give it to us, we're not going to do it. Well, then you're going to sit there and see roads that are going to be around here for 10 years. And you're not going to have that schedule of putting things out and bringing that economy of scale of really, putting out packages and doing those things, and really start seeing the avalanche of 200 and some odd projects being done. It's not an ugly word. You've basically seen it doesn't cost you more. In fact, we think it saves money. We're showing you actual, real, true dollars that happen in Horry County. And you're really seeing that, less than 1% of those will go to a condemnation on things like this. So obviously y'all need to determine what's best for y'all, but we just wanted to bring that to y'all's attention is really something that could help move the needle for you. But we'd be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Questions from the body? You recognize Councilman Weaver.
I'm just curious, why would an owner on a dirt road not be in favor of having the road paved? I don't understand that.
That's a great question. We found that people that like horses do not like paved roads. We got some people that, quite frankly, you never think this, but just don't like the county and don't trust them, and they wouldn't give them anything. So we've had several.
I met a lady. I think she has gone through dementia. She doesn't live there anymore. She has this memory of what her house used to look like, and she didn't want to see any changes. So you deal with that stuff too. Horse people, farmers, and all that good stuff. That there's a wide variety of people on these dirt roads that you'll meet, and I love every one of them.
I have folks who tell me that's why they moved there. They moved there because of that dirt road. They don't come take it from them.
Oh, maybe that's it.
Yeah.
I do have a second question, Mr. Chairman. So my second question is, so let's say y'all pave, I don't know how many miles, 5 miles, 10 miles of dirt roads to pave roads. Is there any information given back to the county of how much those additional miles are going to cost in recurring maintenance, say in 20 years when that asphalt runs out? The county still owns these roads, I take it, after they're paved?
Yes, sir. I don't know if Mr. Maloney, you want to talk about y'all's capture or whatnot.
There is an ongoing cost with whatever the road is. And right now we have as frequently as monthly maintenance on the roads, with heavy equipment that are dirt road as far as maintenance. Some are semi-annually, some are quarterly, some are every time it rains, we're out there doing maintenance. So there is a reoccurring cost to pavement, and we're doing that with our resurfacing program. And we can certainly put together a report on that as far as.
I'm just curious. So there's an ongoing maintenance problem even with dirt roads. I'd be curious which is more expensive to maintain. I would assume the asphalt, but maybe not.
Not from a personnel and equipment standpoint.
Really? Okay. That's interesting. Okay.
We'll prepare a report on that, though. I appreciate that question.
Vice Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Not really a question, but just more of a comment. Just wanted to say thank you to Director Maloney and staff for just bringing more information to this committee about this. I know this is something that we have talked about at our strategic forum, and it's something we've talked about in the strategic plan as a whole, which is being more efficient with our services for constituents. And I really think this is a tool that you're giving us is going to help us to deliver the penny in a more efficient way and really help to complete those projects in a timely manner. So thank you for bringing this information to the committee for consideration.
Recognize Mr.
I ask y'all a question about Horry County's project.
Yes.
Do you know how they dealt with roads that were probably was not a part of the county system, that didn't meet the county requirements and so forth, and did the county take them in? How did that process work?
I don't know. We definitely could check that out for you, but I don't really know where they have done anything where they were taking in roads because they've got a huge dirt road inventory, and if anything, they have, like I showed you earlier, they've tried to get out of the dirt road business as much as possible. So we definitely can check for you and find that out, but I don't know where they were taking anything out that was outside of their county system.
No questions? All right. Well, gentlemen, thank you.
Thank
Again.
you. We appreciate your time.
Absolutely. Appreciate your time. Thank you. Next item on the agenda is item 6, adjournment. Entertain a motion.
So moved.
Second.
Been moved to properly second. It's non-debatable. Madam Clerk, take the vote.
Livingston, Weaver,
Yes.
Walker,
Yes.
Mackey.
Yes.
Motion approved.
We are adjourned.